All right, guys. So on Friday, you went over climate. Okay, you had the short podcast. It was lesson 1 for this unit. Okay, and it talked about climate. And the big thing we need to remember about climate is what makes up climate. Okay, it had 4 components, and then it had 7 or 8 factors that affect it. What I want to see if you remember are the 4 components of climate. Okay, anybody remember what they were? What's that? Precipitation is one. I mean, really, guys, when you look at the weather on your phone, what are the 2 things you're most concerned with? This and one other thing. Right? These are the 2 big parts of climate. Right? The other 2, okay, light and wind. Right? These are the four components of climate. All right? There are other factors that affect them. What this activity is designed to do is look at the factors that affect climate. And we said the factors were latitude, altitude, proximity to oceans, okay, mountain barriers, centers of high and low pressure, direction of prevailing winds, okay, and things like that. All of those were mentioned. All right? So what we want to find out is, are there any patterns that we can find between cities in Canada and based on like their location and then their climate? All right. So, I mean, realistically, there should be some things in common. All right. I mean, should most of the prairie cities have very similar climates? Okay. Like, I mean, if I look at let's say Calgary, Lethbridge, Saskatoon, Regina, Moose Jaw, okay, if I look at those cities, should they have very similar climates? Relatively, right? I mean, they have fairly similar climates because they're affected by the same things. Or at least they got enough similar factors affecting them that their climates should be the same. All right? Similarly, if I look at climates of all of, let's say, the maritime cities, I should see similar patterns because similar factors are affecting them. Everybody follow? They're all close to oceans. They're all near sea level. Okay? Things like that. Okay? Is this making sense? Ringing a bell? Okay? If it's not, well, then you might want to watch lesson 1 over again. Okay? So, what factors can affect the climate of an area? Well, these are the components of climate, and we already said they're affected by certain factors. Latitude. Latitude was the biggest one. Okay? Anyone remember why latitude is the biggest factor affecting climate? Right. Well, not so much how far it is from the Earth, but the angle that the sunlight strikes the Earth at. Okay? The closer to the equator you are, the more directly overhead the sun is. And when the sun is directly overhead, you get very intense sunshine, and as a result, you get higher temperatures. All right? In the summertime, when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun is more directly overhead. Days are longer, okay, because we're in the sun more because the Earth is tilted, okay, and the sun's more directly overhead, we get more intense sunshine, so it gets warmer. All right? Latitude affects climate because it affects this, and this can affect this, and so on. All right? You guys seeing the relationships here? Yeah? So, if I'm looking at, let's say, a bunch of northern... Really? That's exactly what we were just talking about. If I look at a bunch of very northerly cities, am I going to see anything in common with them? Right? Are they going to have very low temperatures? Okay, because they have high latitude. Okay, they're affected by the same factors. Okay, if I'm looking at a bunch of cities that are up high in the mountains, same idea. Okay, they all have high altitudes, or a bunch of cities that are at sea level, they all have low altitudes. All right, these are the things we need to look for in this lab. All right, so our hypothesis needs to talk about, okay, what factors most affect climate for Canadian cities. All right, we're going to have graph paper, colored pencils, we'll have atlases. You might just want to use, okay, your phone, because I've got a website on there where you can check out, okay, the climate information. All right, so you're going to be divided up into groups here, or you'll divide yourselves, okay. and you'll look at the back of that sheet, and you have a chart that is not on here for some reason. Okay, so you got that big chart of cities. There's 15 cities on there. All right, I would say you need to get into a group of 3. Okay, you can't be in a group of more. If you're in a group of more than 3, you're still going to be drawing 5 climatograms. Everybody in the group is drawing 5, no matter how many there are in your group. So you might as well just get in a group of 3. It makes your life a lot easier. Okay, if you get in a group of 2, well, then you got a little bit more work to do. Right, so you probably want to avoid that. So you're going to break yourself up into groups, okay, and you're going to draw climate graphs for the cities on that sheet. All right, now again, you may want to look up that data on the internet, on that website I gave you, because that sheet is really hard to read, and it was the best picture of it I could find. Okay, so on your climatograms, and this was at the end of lesson 1 there, okay, your climatograms should look something like this. Okay, you have a line that represents temperature. All right, so one side of your climatogram has a temperature scale on it. The other side of the climatogram has a scale for precipitation. The bars are the precipitation. Okay, you're going to be drawing 5 of those each. That way your whole group has a climatogram for each of the 15 cities on that sheet. What you're going to use those climatograms for is looking for similarities in shape. Right? If you've got 4 cities that have pretty much the same shape, they probably go in a group together. Right? And you're going to group them. And then you're going to find them on an atlas and go, oh yeah, I can see why these would go in the same group. They're all, let's say, maritime cities. Right? And if they're all maritime cities, they're probably affected by the same factors. These would be the factors that would affect them. Okay? If you got a bunch that look really cold with low precipitation, you probably will find they're all northerly cities. Okay? And you can say, well, these are the factors that affect the climate of these cities, etc. You guys follow where we're going here? All right, now I've got the climatographs for pretty much all the cities that are on that list, okay, on here. All right, give you some idea. All right, because a lot of people say, oh, I can't find the information. Well, yes, you can. Okay, now, all right, so option for step 1, okay, you go to this climate site and you'll see something like this, okay, and you can pick your cities and you get this kind of a graph. Now, the only information you need is daily average temperature, okay, and you need the precipitation. All right, so down here in millimeters. So you only need daily average and precipitation. That's all you need. All right, same thing on that sheet. If you're going to use the sheet I gave you, you are only going to need rows A and row D. All right, rows A and D are your average daily temperature and average precipitation. Sorry, that's what I want. Average monthly temperature, A. That's what I want. Sorry, I said daily, but I meant monthly. Okay. Now, for this sheet here as well, scratch off the very last column where it says average. Okay, that's the total yearly average, and you don't need that for anything, and it'll just mess you up. Okay, so you'll want to scratch that column right off. You're not going to use it. Now, in order for your climatograms to be useful, everyone in your group needs to use the same scale on their graph. Otherwise, you could make Calgary, Alberta look like it's as wet as Prince George, which is not the case. All right, so you need to make sure everyone's using the same scale so that the shapes stand out. All right, here's how you do that. Find the biggest precipitation number on that sheet and make sure that everyone's climatogram has a scale that allows that number to fit on it. Okay, same for temperature. You need to find the highest temperature and the lowest temperature on that whole thing. Okay, and make sure that the scale will fit those numbers. Now, quick review on graphs. How do I figure out what my scale should be? Take the number you need and divide it by the number of boxes. That's easy for precipitation, but for temperature, you've got positive and negative values. It doesn't start at 0. Okay, so what you'll have to do, let's say your lowest temperature is minus 35 and your highest temperature is positive 25. So how much do you need to get on your graph? 60. Right? From negative 35 to positive 25 is 60 degrees. Agreed? All right, so you'll have to do that. You'll have to take, okay, your 25 minus negative 35, and you'll get your big number. Okay, that's the, so whatever you do with your scale, you got to make sure you can fit 60 degrees on it. Start with minus 35 at the bottom, 0 will be somewhere in the middle, and then go positive from there. Does that make sense? Okay, once your group has found that, then it's just a matter of time-consuming draw out graphs. Okay, I know that sucks, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so you have to have 5 graphs per person so that you can compare their shapes with your group, and then you can start on the analysis part of this. Okay, so once you have all of your precipitation or all your climatograms, then you'll try and group the different climates based on your findings. Okay, sorry, I missed the procedure part. Okay, so the class is divided into groups. Okay, in an atlas, locate the cities that you drew, okay, the climatograms for, okay, and describe the terrain, presence of large bodies of water, any other surface features of the area. Basically, the factors you think affect the climate for that city. Okay, quick descriptions of them is all you need, short little 2 or 3 sentences for each of your 5 cities. All right, then, all right, you and your group can start putting them together into groups, and you can say, well, this is the prairie group, and this is the mountain group, and this is the central Canada group, okay, or whatever. All right, you decide what you want the groups to be. Everybody follow? Okay. All right, so that's the start of the analysis, okay, right here. So with your group the different climates based on your findings, okay. So what you'll have already done is looked at your climatograms and gone, okay, well, this one's, you know, kind of cold looking. The maximum temperature reached here is like 8 degrees. Okay, it probably doesn't go in with this one, you know, where the average temperature gets up to 16. So those two are certainly not going to go together. No one would put Nunavut with Calgary, right? They just don't fit together. All right, but Edmonton and Calgary, they got a lot of similarities. Okay, temperatures are close, precipitations are close. It would seem reasonable that those two should probably go in a group together. All right, you guys follow the thought process here? Okay. All right, so you name those groups, and then, okay, you have to explain why you think they go in a group together as part of analysis question number 1. Okay, and then for question number 2, okay, you're going to look up these cities in an atlas. You do not need to draw climatograms for these cities. All right, you've already drawn all the climatograms you're going to draw. These you just look up, and based on their location, put them in one of the groups from question number 1. Okay, so you can say, well, I think that, let's say, Lethbridge, Alberta should go in the prairie group because, okay, and tell me why. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of days here where we're going to have time to just draw the graphs. Okay, we're going to have time to look up the stuff in the atlas. I'll bring the atlases in. Okay, you could also use an online atlas if you want to do that. Okay, that's just as good. All right, and you've also got the website here, okay, that you can go to, right, in order to get to the stuff you need. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is get some graph paper ready for you guys. Right now you can decide on your groups and decide which cities everybody's going to be drawing. Okay? All right, now due date for this, guys, I've already set is June 10th. That's next week. All right, so it's a fairly quick turnaround. Yeah, so guys, question just came up here. How do we do this? Do we scan this in and then submit it electronically? The answer is no. This one you'll actually be handing in a physical copy of because you'll have all of your climatograms.